Welcome everyone. In this video I'm going to show you a great use case for the CH9141 Bluetooth communication tutorial that I introduced recently. I own this very capable fume extractor. It has 3 power settings, low, medium and high, and it does a great job of pulling away harmful fumes while I'm soldering. However, unlike what you see right now, the fume extractor normally lives on the floor, tucked behind my desk. So whenever I want to turn it on or off, or change the power level, it becomes a small adventure. I have to crawl under the desk, and even then pressing the button is a struggle because the device tends to slide away. The button is stiff, the wheel rolls on my floor, and the whole thing becomes a mini workout. So I'm going to show you how I modified the electronics and added my own circuitry to make the fume extractor remote controlled. To reach the circuit board, we first need to remove the wheels. I already demonstrated the disassembly process in the review video for this device. The wheels come off with a 12mm wrench, but pliers also work. I didn't tighten the bolts too aggressively. After removing the wheels, there are 4 hex screws to remove. Then, the bottom panel can be lifted, revealing the fan and the electronics. This panel carries quite a few mains cables. Both the supply voltage and the motor's voltage is mains voltage. There is also a protective earth connection, which is attached not only to the panel, but also to the metal enclosure. To inspect the panel more closely, it needs to be removed. It is held in place by 3 screws. The first 2 came out easily, but the third one, located in a less accessible spot, had a completely worn head. It seems the original assembler simply forced it in at an angle until the head surrendered. Fortunately, that wasn't a problem. I have a flexible screwdriver extension, and with a bit of patience, I was able to remove the screw without drama. Before touching anything, even though I was wearing rubber gloves, which are somewhat insulating, I measured a few points on the high voltage side. I didn't want to be greeted by a leftover charge. Luckily, the circuit was no longer spicy. The next step was to identify the switch and see what it does. It is just a basic tactile switch with a longer plunger. It is not latching, it is a momentary switch. For testing, I attached wires to the 2 sides of the switch, just tacked on Great Scott style. First, I checked the voltage across the switch, and to my surprise, it was about 18 volts in standby and nearly 40 volts when the fan was running. The simple way to handle this is with a relay. I'm using a relay module that operates from 5 volts and already includes a flyback diode and optocoupler. Since the original switch is normally open and closes the circuit when pressed, I wired the relay in the same manner, one wire on COM, the other on NO, normally open. When the relay triggers, it shorts the 2 wires, effectively pressing the switch. Before moving on, I wanted to make sure that the idea actually works. So I powered the relay with 5 volt, positive to VCC, negative to GND, and connected a small wire that I could tap between VCC and the in pins. The wire connection wasn't exactly laboratory grade, so triggering the relay required some finesse, but I eventually managed it. The LED turns green and the fan starts spinning. Repeatedly triggering the relay cycles through all power levels and eventually turns the fan off. The device only advances forward. For example, you can't go from medium back to low level. This will matter later. Next, I gathered the main components of the circuit. Both the receiver and the transmitter will use the CH9141 Bluetooth module. I covered the relevant principles in my previous tutorial. The receiver uses a CH32V003 F4P6 module. It is overkill, but I have plenty of them, and the onboard regulator will be useful later. For the remote, I will use a CH32V003 J4M6 microcontroller. I don't need many pins, and I want a low power device, so a bare chip is perfect. Coincidentally, or maybe not, I have another tutorial where I used this same microcontroller to demonstrate low power programming, achieving about 10 microamps in standby mode. That would be great here as well, since I will power the remote from either a CR2025 or CR2032 battery, and I would prefer not to replace it frequently. So the next question, how do you power the receiver? The device's circuit board has a few chips and is probably microcontroller driven, so it must have a low voltage rail somewhere. There's a component labeled U1, which looks like a classic linear regulator. Measuring it reveals that it receives about 15 volts and outputs 5 volts. Whoever designed this apparently thought that dropping more than 10 volts up to 100 milliamps, essentially wasting a watt as heat, was completely fine. Anyway, let's check whether the input voltage changes when the fan is running. I jump-started the device using a somewhat questionable method, but it worked. Fortunately, the voltage was stable, making it a good candidate to power my microcontroller, Bluetooth module, relay circuit. So I will use the MP2315 DC-DC converter I salvaged from my previous microcontroller stage controller project. It is already configured for 5 volts since it used to power a Teensy 4.0 microcontroller. For testing, I built the remote circuit on a separate board using leftover parts from the CH9141 tutorial. The remote was powered by a bench supply and the receiver by USB, actually by the 5 volt line on my CH32 development board. The receiver is the CH32 V003 F4P6 board, which already had an LED and the BD135 transistor connected to PD3. The LED provides visual feedback and the transistor drives the relay. The relay needs 5 volt logic, while the Bluetooth module and the microcontroller use 3.3 volts, so this simple transistor stage does the trick. As you can see, I can turn the device on, cycle through the power levels and turn it off, so the concept works. While the circuit was still on the breadboard, I measured its power consumption. In standby, it draws around 1.3 milliamps. When sending a Bluetooth command, it is about 9.5 milliamps. Something odd is happening in the Bluetooth module. No matter what I tried, I couldn't get it to draw less power. Interestingly, disconnecting it from the microcontroller's GPIO pins reduced the draw to 11 microamps, so something somewhere is definitely leaking. Even so, I will power the remote from a battery holder with an on-off switch. For a few hours of use, 1.3 milliamps is fine, and when I'm not working, I can simply switch it off. The circuit is relatively compact, but I'm still assembling it on a prototyping board. I'm not designing a PCB for it yet. This application is too specific, so I placed the components on a protoboard, soldered them, and copied the wiring from the breadboard. No schematic needed, since the original wiring was right in front of me. For wiring, I used pre-made breadboard jump wires. They are convenient, pre-cut, and often the perfect length. As usual, I used some putty as a third hand. Great for holding components in place. The only issue is that it becomes very soft when warm, like certain chewing gums when you chew them for too long. It's not ideal. I covered the area under the battery holder with Kapton tape just to avoid accidental shorts, since I hadn't fully planned the alignment. To test the remote, I simply checked if the relay is triggered. I didn't actually turn the fan on, it was late at night and the fan is extremely loud. If the relay clicks, the system works, and the LEDs also provide a good indication. The receiver board going into the enclosure was also assembled on a prototyping board. I chose an old, low-quality one because I have far too many and they need to be used up. Again, I migrated components from the breadboard and rebuilt the same circuit on the protoboard. The difference here is that I'm using the DC-DC converter to regulate the 15.6 volts down to 5 volts. I didn't want to put it too close to the Bluetooth module in case of switching noise, but I still needed room for the relay. In the end, everything fit nicely. The final board has a bit of spaghetti wiring, but I prioritized function over aesthetics. I tested the board with a bench power supply without connecting the relay to the fence circuit. If the relay clicks, everything should be fine, and it does click. Next, it was time to clean up everything and install the circuit in the fume extractor. First, I cleaned up the messy wires going to the relay. Then I double-checked the positive and negative wires for the voltage regulator. A quick measurement confirmed everything. The large tab on the D7 diode made a perfect solder point for the positive wire. The negative wire went to the negative pin of the U1 regulator, which also had a nice large pad. With everything assembled, I ran a final test before mounting it inside the enclosure. You might also notice the extra 1000 microfarad capacitor on the 5V rail. I added it because I was concerned about the relay's sudden 100 mA draw. I didn't want the microcontroller or Bluetooth module browning out. Besides manually stepping through the 3 power levels, I implemented a neat feature. I turn the device on, long press the button, and when I hear the first click, I release it. The device continues stepping through the remaining power levels and then shuts off. Regardless of the current level, it always steps until it is off. The original circuit went back to its place and the receiver sits next to it. To avoid future frustration, I replaced the original terrible bolts with proper hex bolts. They are stronger, easier to tighten, and much harder to damage, even if the tool is held at an angle. Once again, I tested the circuit. You might notice that the receiver now has small feet. The feet let me secure the board properly inside the enclosure. The warranty is already gone, so I drilled a few holes. I used a similar prototyping board as a drilling template, and because I'm frugal, I used only 2 bolts to mount the board. The drilling went surprisingly well, though I have had a lot of practice at work, so that probably helps. As you can see, the board stays in place, even upside down, so 2 screws are enough. Next, I put the rear panel back on. This is interesting because adding another metal panel could turn the enclosure into a Faraday cage, which is great for blocking radio waves. The proof is in the pudding, so let's test it after installing the bottom panel. It's an exciting moment, and well, it works. Let's hope it works beyond this short distance. I will need about 1 to 1.5 meters of range. The project is almost finished, but I still had this very exposed remote. I can't leave it like that, I would eventually damage it or short something important. So I designed and 3D printed a nice enclosure for it. Originally, I wanted a flap on the front panel to cover the button, but it turned out to be too stiff and kept pressing the button. I didn't want to redesign the entire front, so I simply cut out the button opening. The bottom shell is simple as well. It has a rim, so the top can snap on with a snug fit. I also added a small hole on the side to access the battery holder's power switch. The circuit board fits nicely in the shell, and the button doesn't look bad either. The battery switch can be toggled with anything pointy. Now finally, I don't need to crawl into that tight corner anymore. I can just use the remote and set the fume extractor to the desired power level. If you are interested in this project, visit my website, the link is in the description, where I wrote an article and uploaded some nice images. Also, if you enjoy these projects and want to support me, please consider becoming a channel member. Your support helps me to invest more into developing solutions like this and presenting them. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something, and see you in the next video.